Hi everyone, it's Agnes and I've got a very special interview for you today. It's with James. Hello, James.
Hi, Agnes. Hi.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. You are
Great to see
in,
you.
let
I'm in
people,
Ohio.
you're in Ohio, USA. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Now, I asked you to come and do this interview with me. You are actually in the new book, Behind Closed Doors, the
Yeah.
relationship book. Under that, in that book, you're under a different name because we've changed the names to protect people's anonymity. But I don't know why we didn't realize you didn't mind. So if you do have that book, James's story is under the name Ryan. So James, can you start at the beginning of where you were at before you started learning about all this, and then we'll go into sharing about your success story.
So, where do I start? Boy. All right. So, I, like many people, I grew up in a single household. My mom raised, me and my big sister, and then she ended up having my little brother, and then two other siblings followed. So at the time, my mom did such an incredible job raising all of us, that it didn't really occur to my mind about a father figure being there, because she was doing the best she could, providing for us, giving us the best childhood experiences that we had. Um, but the whole idea of a father being around actually occurred when, I would watch movies and I would see the mother and the father there, or when we would have school functions and they'll have like dad days. And I would see my dad occasionally sometimes, but not all the time. So through that, I was just witnessing their relationship and how tarnished that was. And little did I know that that was actually going to be embedded into my subconscious mind. Fast forward, I didn't really start seriously dating until high school. And I was with somebody for about probably 3 years. 3 years I was with somebody during high school. And at the very, very beginning, I would say maybe like the first week or two, things was like, oh, it's so magical, great. And I was like, I don't know why people are so stressed out about these things. And then, after those 2 weeks, I started seeing like certain red flags. There were certain red flags, and like the way he would communicate with me, the way that we would go back and forth. And then the first year that we were together, I was actually cheated on. And that put a huge strain on my heart because I never experienced that before. I didn't really know how to react. And then after the first occasion, it just kept happening constantly, constantly, constantly. And little did I know, I kept abandoning myself because I kept asking for his reassurance. I kept trying to hold on to him and hold on to the relationship. And what was scary was that everything that me and him were experiencing was everything that my mom had experienced with my dad, and what I had watched in previous marriages and relationships from my family. And I didn't really realize that until maybe like 2 years later. And it was just an aha moment for me. And then finally, right before my 18th birthday, he did it again. And I had cut the relationship off. And I didn't really think to myself that I needed healing. I just jumped straight into another one, shortly right after. And that one was the same thing. It was like the first 2 weeks, everything was perfect. And then red flags about certain things. And he started mirroring me a lot of the things that I had hidden inside of me, like my insecurities and everything. And slowly, I think shortly right after the new year, he cut ties with me. And before he did that, he was saying that I was like putting so much pressure on him, that I was looking for, you know, um, I was looking for validation from him. And he was just like, you need to do this, you need to do that and stuff. And he ended up cutting all contact with me shortly right after. That was also around the same time that I had gotten out of the high school that I told you about in the last story about the GED.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably for about 5 months of 2018, I was just in a huge depressed place because, you know, I had just gotten out of a 3-year relationship out of being cheated on multiple times. And then this person goes MIA from me.
Mm.
And so it was just a whole bunch of emotions. And after that, I was kind of like, I needed some form of like some form of positivity. So I was moving towards religion. And so I was like reading the Bible, I was going to church because I just needed something to get me out of that place. Because it was so disheartening for me. I mean, I remember I was looking sick. You know, those people around me that was like, you look very depressed. You don't look yourself. You look very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And even when I kind of went towards the Christian religion, you know, everybody has their different routes of what they believe. But even still, I didn't feel too great with that. I didn't really feel accepted. Something just didn't click. And then the summer of that year, my grandmother had introduced me to law of attraction.
Mm.
And then there's where things kind of get a little interesting. I started watching the movie The Secret, and then I started looking up videos on YouTube. Yours was one of the first that actually came up. And when I first started doing it, it was all about wanting to attract him back, the one that went MIA for me. I was so stuck on it. I was like, I want to do it. I want to get him back, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do that for probably about 3 months after learning about the law of attraction. And shortly right after learning about it, I actually ended up forgetting about the whole situation. It went from me trying to attract him back to me starting to discover so much about myself. I started learning so much about myself, and I started watching a lot of your videos, meditating a lot. At first, it was actually hard because I was like sitting in like on my bed or on the floor, and then I was just like, I can't feel anything.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm like, what are they talking about? Because I remember like some of your videos, you know, you would walk the viewers through, and then I'll be like, I'm not feeling anything. And then over time, I started feeling it a lot. I started discovering Ho'oponopono through your channel as well.
Yeah.
And watching so many stories. So because of watching your channel and so many other different channels and reading so many books and all the great stuff that was happening to me, I just pushed it aside, you know, trying to attract him because I was just like, I'm learning so much about myself. This stuff is good. Like, this is some good stuff. And, you know, it was just overall a fun experience. It was incredible. I was having fun being by myself. I was making so many amazing, incredible friends. I got an amazing job opportunity at around the same time that majored in the field that I want to do. I'm like, what are the chances?
Really?
And yeah, and then
Nice.
before 2019 started, I actually was on the phone with one of my friends, and you know, I told him, I was like, 2019 is going to be a great year. I'm like, it's going to be a great year. I just know it. I have no doubt about that. There's nothing inside of me that has me doubting any of that ability. And I started like writing my goals down like in a journal. And I was just like, I'm going to write all this down. And all of it actually ended up coming true, if not even better. And then my friend ended up reminding me, I didn't even care about relationships at the time either. And my friend was on the phone with me. He was just like, well, what about relationships? You know, like, when are you going to get into something? I was like, you know what? When it happens, it happens. I'm like, I'm not really pressed on it. I'm like, if it happens this year, next year, 10 years, 20 years from now, I don't even care. I'm just happy with life. I'm grateful to be here. There's so much to discover. I was like, I'm young. So I'm like, who cares? And I was like, but I
James,
do.
can I ask you,
Mhm.
from the time of the breakup to the time you started feeling this amazing, like just feeling
Mhm.
free and good about it, how long of a time span was that?
From the time that I was like in that sunk place to
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah.
So I would say probably around from December of 2017 to like August of 2018.
Okay, so 8 months or so. That's not too bad. That's pretty quick,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is just like through the meditations and especially Ho'oponopono,
Mm,
it was helping me tremendously. Like, you know, it's so weird and it's such a weird coincidence. When I was little, I would always look up to my future self and be like, oh, like I wonder what he's gonna be doing in so
yeah.
and so years. And then it's weird because I actually through Ho'oponopono started actually looking up to my younger self, like my little self when I was
Mm,
just so much free spirited and
yeah.
didn't really care about anything. I was just all about fun and about love, and I just didn't let the little things bother me. But over time that changed, and we can
Yeah.
choose to either pick ourselves up or,
Mm,
not, it's all up to us.
mm,
Um, but, it really helped a lot, and I started just like discovering so much about myself. And then I told my friend on the phone, I was like, you know what? The next one I'm going to be in, it's going to be full of adventures and love and just happiness. But I was like, whenever it happens, it happens. I don't even care.
yeah. Yeah.
And surely right after I had gotten my GED, and then I told myself right after I got my GED that I was gonna wait like 2 or 3 months to start working because I wanted like a break from school. School was horrible, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Um,
Just for people that don't know what GED is, can you tell them? Because, yeah, the non-Americans might not know. Go ahead.
so GED is like another way of getting your high school diploma.
Okay.
Um, you can get it from from getting a high school diploma, or you can get your GED. It's basically like another form of getting your education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so right after I gotten it, I got a job at JFK Airport.
Okay.
And so I met some incredible, amazing people that I consider best friends now.
Yeah.
And then I got like a text message from someone on social media. It was him.
Yeah.
And it was just out of nowhere. It was like a long paragraph, explaining like, oh, I'd like to meet you, I'd like to get to know you, yada, 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 all this stuff. And I was just so full of myself with everything that was going on. And I was just feeling so comfortable in my skin. I just brushed it aside. I was just like, that's nothing. I'm just like, he's
Yeah.
weird, all sort of stuff. I'm just like,
It's weird.
because I was watching a movie with my family and I ignored him for probably like an hour
Yeah.
because I was like, I'll get back to that. Like I had no form of attachment. It didn't cross my mind about even the possibility of dating
Yeah.
him. Like, it
Yeah.
was just not in my mind.
Isn't
And
that
so,
nice when you're just
yeah.
not? Yeah.
And then shortly right after, I was like, you know what, let me respond to him. And then he was super friendly, super nice. And he was just like, I'd love to go on a date, to meet you and all,
But
and we
how did
started
he
talking.
know? How did he know where you lived? Like, how did he know he was living close to you in the same country? How did he know all of that?
So on both of our profiles, he had that he lived in Ohio, and then I had
Okay.
that I lived in New York. And, I told him, I was just like, here's the thing, I don't live in Ohio. And then I looked up how far Ohio was from New York, and it's like an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I don't think that that's gonna go well because I'm like, that's far. And at the time I just wanted someone locally.
Yeah.
And so we ended up being like really good friends shortly right after. I was still going on occasional dates. The funny thing about going on the dates was it was actually I was learning more about where I was at in terms of self-love because each individual date was actually mirroring me back to where I was. And
Mm,
so after every date and after, what dates would tell me, I'll just be like, oh, I need to work on this, or maybe I need to work on that, or this is where I'm at and my self-love. And so
mm.
it was helping me a lot. And, you know, he would still text me and be like, I really want to meet you. I really want to go on a date. And I'll just be like, oh, maybe later on. And I'm like, we're just cool friends. Like, why are you saying that you want to go on a date with me and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
And I didn't. parts of me kind of didn't even believe him when he wanted to go on dates with me. It just kind of didn't occur to my mind. I'm just like, I've never seen someone be so interested in wanting to meet me before.
Yep.
And so shortly right after August came, we were like still very close friends. We actually ended up becoming like super, really good friends. And he was just like, oh, like, how would you feel if you like met me and everything? We can go like a public date. You can come over to Ohio. And I was just like, well, sure. You know, I'm totally fine with that. And
How long did you wait, James, for the getting to know each other without seeing each other process? How long was that?
That was probably like 6, 7 months.
Oh, okay. So quite a while. You were very much the turtle wins the race here.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I just, it didn't occur to my mind about, you know, being together. It didn't really occur to me, you know, and I was just still going on dates, you know, still doing me, still hanging out. I was even taking myself out on dates.
Nice.
I was going like to the movies. It was fun. And so I eventually, around September, I went to go visit him.
Yeah.
Because before I had met up with him in person, he was asking me, he was just like, I hope you know when you get here, I'm going to ask you to be my boyfriend, right?
Wow.
And I was just like, totally. I'm just like, you're not going to ask me that.
You became his specific person through the time of getting to know each other slowly. It sounds like he just knew. He felt it and he pursued it. Wow.
Yep. And he was just like, you know, just saying a whole bunch of sweet words. And so I was just pushing it aside. I was like, totally. And then when I met him in person, something inside of me just felt different. It was like something clicked. And I kind of just like all those months of me just pushing him to the side and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It felt like we had already been dating and stuff.
Mm.
And then he actually ended up asking me to be his boyfriend. I was just like, yeah, sure. And the minute I said yes, he posted it on his social media. He was like so excited and stuff. And I was just like, wow. And I met his family that same day. They were super friendly. They treated me like family.
Nice.
And then something inside me, I know this may sound crazy, but I ended up moving in with him, I would say later on, like probably about like a month later.
Yeah.
I started saving up money, and my mom shockingly was like okay with it. She was just like, sure. And it was like everything was falling into place. And so ever since then, it's just been a huge roller coaster. I've learned so much about him. I've actually had more opportunities here than I did back in my home state and stuff, which is crazy.
So did you leave? You left the job at JFK and then totally you had to let that go fully in the end?
Yeah, I ended up leaving that job at JFK. It was a smooth transition. It was a fun job too. And literally, even once me and him had gotten together, and even to this day, I was still focusing on self-love. I was still reading books. I'm going to be very honest. I probably haven't meditated probably like in 3 months. But I'm actually getting back into that now. But like, I've just learned so much, you know, just from kind of being away family, even though it's a little hard, you know, especially with COVID, not being able to travel to see them. This is the time where I've just learned to appreciate so much more about myself and just life in general. And it's like, it made me see things from a completely different perspective, because before moving away from them, I actually didn't really have the closest relationship with them, you know, especially my mother. And I think a lot of people probably experience this. I actually got closer to my mom
Yeah.
Once I moved out, I got closer to my big sister and stuff. So it's like there's so much that has gained
Mm.
from this. Um, and so that's the exciting thing. I mean, my birthday is like a week from now and everything.
Ah,
So that's exciting.
you're a
Um,
Sagittarius too.
yep. And when I found out that you were a Sagittarius, I was just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I just had my birthday yesterday, and
Wow, happy
it's quite,
belated.
thank you. But it's like there's been a lot of just a lot of people that have been clustering around for interviews or in emails, and they're
Mhm.
all, it's like this whole big explosion of people born at this month, like this before the end of the year hits,
Yeah.
and I seem to be interviewing a lot of you. Just funny. That's
Yeah, it's really an honor. I'm just utterly grateful. And it's funny because I would sometimes on my way to like school, yeah, on my way to like school or work, I would watch your videos. Like I would listen to it like as if it was a podcast, like some of the meditations, while I'll be on the train or the bus. Or there'll be times where I'll just be listening to you and Dan. I think that's his name, Dan.
yeah.
And then you guys would talk about projections and Ho'oponopono and Neville. Oh my, like even, for example, I have this book right here by Herbert Harris,
Yeah.
12 Universal Laws.
Yeah.
And like reading those books, like discovering people like you and some of the, it's like so
Yeah.
much food of thought.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? What do you think was, I mean, was it a collection of things you think that were the most transformational for you, going from, well, the heartbreak and then getting yourself out of feeling depressed and brokenhearted and feeling awful? Do you think it was a combination of things that got you to that great feeling that the relationship just fell into your lap? Because it really did just fall into your lap.
It did because I just started appreciating things a lot more. I started seeing things from a completely different
Yeah.
perspective. And, you know, before I even had gotten to this relationship, I was mending a lot of broken relationships that I had with friends and even family members. I actually grew closer. Before even getting into this one, I had a deep hatred relationship with my mom's husband.
Yeah.
Deep hatred relationship that spanned it for 10 years because they've been married for a while, and so I had deep anger and hatred towards him. So when I was like doing the Ho'oponopono, it was helping me like just break a lot of those bad relationships that I had inside me. It made me forgive
Yeah.
not just people that I was so angry about, but it helped me just forgive myself because
Mm,
I didn't realize until I started doing it that I was feeling very guilty about myself.
yeah.
And I just had so much disgust with who I was, and I wasn't liking what I was seeing in the mirror. I would look in
Yeah.
the mirror and just not feel comfortable. I mean, there's still moments where you have those little insecurities here and there.
Yeah.
I'm a human being, we all are.
Yeah.
But now it's like I noticed that I'm getting back to my younger self when I just didn't really care too much about
Yeah.
what anybody thought or anything like that. I was just overall excited, overall
Mm,
happy. And I love it now. I even see myself looking more up to what kids are doing. Kids, they
yeah.
seem so much more
Yeah.
happier. They have a huge span of imagination. Never did I thought that I would ever look up to kids.
I know.
It's strange, how weird life can be sometimes.
Yeah.
And the things that you didn't really expect, they end up being some of the things that help you out and
Mm.
stuff. And there's even certain foods that now I want to eat now and certain foods that I don't want to eat. So
Yes.
it's like this whole self-love thing, I've just learned a lot about.
Mm. It's such a, I think it's one of the greatest life-changing things of all time, where you go through something that just knocks you out, like someone cheating on you, someone leaving you,
Hmm.
and it brings up all that old stuff of feeling unwanted, unloved, that you
Yeah.
don't matter. It brings up all that old stuff, and then it's like once you process it through really dealing with it, you don't kind of put any addiction over the top to avoid it. Any kind of addiction, because there's so many, it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter which one it is. It's the fact that you do not let the stuff come up because you don't like the feeling of it. But if you let that stuff come up and out, you hit the stillness eventually.
Hmm.
And then you're free to have a relationship. You're not needing a relationship or
Hmm.
my alarm to do yoga, which I'm not doing today. Um, but yeah, it's like such a transformation that you never forget. Like I will
No.
never forget. I had the same experience as you, and you learn
Oh.
something beyond what you even would ever think. And you look back and you go, "I'm so glad that happened to me now."
Mhm. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, so my best friend, she was telling me because she was trying to like help me up through the situation, and me and her, we even talk about it now. She said something very similar to you said. She was just like,
Mm,
James, don't worry. Like, probably like 2 or 3 years or 4 years from now, you're gonna look back and probably like laugh
yeah.
at it and be glad that it happened. And so many people were telling me about that. When I was in a
Mm,
very deep place. And it was just, I kind of didn't want to believe them because I was just so stuck on wanting to make sure that I just got that person back.
mm,
I didn't want to hear what anybody else had to say. There would be times where I would watch certain videos about how to attract a specific person.
yeah.
And, I would watch some of your videos, and there would even be times where you would just give the no BS explanation about it, cold hard truth. And then I'll
Yeah.
just be like, I don't know if I want to watch the full
Yeah.
video because I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of hurting what I'm like believing and stuff. And then later on, I actually started loving those videos a lot more because those were just so realistic about
Mm,
everything. And one of the things that I've even observed is that I'm a lot more free and a lot more enjoying of who I am. And the same views that I had about before I got in a relationship, they're the same views that I have now. Nothing has really changed about me besides maybe certain viewpoints about certain stuff. I mean, I gained a little weight here and there, but
yeah, that happened.
like, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
but you've got more self-acceptance if you put on a few pounds and you have a bit more self-acceptance and you go, okay, well, I am going to still make some changes,
yeah,
but the core of me is happy. The core of me is happy.
yep, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, the core of me is happy, and that's the exciting thing about it all. Sorry, I'm moving. The sun is like,
Yeah, that's all right.
but yeah, the core of me is a lot more happy. Like, it's funny because right after I moved in with him, I gained like a few pounds shortly right after, and he did as well. And his brother was like, you gained a few pounds since you've been with James and all. And the same thing happened to me because I went to visit my family that same year on Thanksgiving. And my mom was like, you gained a little bit of weight and everything. And she was like, you have a little happy pouch. And I was like, is that a bad thing? And she was just like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I was just like, okay, good.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's the thing. So at first I thought I was looking at it as like a bad thing because I was just like, I'm
mm,
gaining so much weight. Like, what's going on and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
But multiple people was just like, no, you're fine. You're fine. Like,
yeah.
it's a mutual thing. It happens when you're in something that's happy, when you feel comfortable with yourself. You gain a few pounds here and there. Now, my mom was like, I'd be a little worried if you started losing a lot of pounds right after you got into one, but she was just like, it's actually
Yeah.
the opposite.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
that's the
often
thing.
too, you end up, because you're living together, you cook together, you eat together, you talk about your day and all of that. So
Yeah.
you do put in more effort with your food when you're, I think,
Yeah.
happy and together than when you're depressed, and you either overeat when you're depressed or you totally starve yourself because you're just emotionally disturbed. So
Yeah. And that's it. Like, even recently, Thanksgiving, I cooked some stuff. And that was actually the first time that I had cooked for Thanksgiving, because originally I was planning on visiting my family for the holidays because I haven't seen them this entire year.
yeah.
And that was
Wow.
actually canceled because, the COVID cases and stuff like that. And um, then I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to make the best out of the holidays.
Yep.
It was so emotional at times because this is around the first time that I've ever not seen family for the holidays. It was
Yeah.
different for me, but I was just like, I'm gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna cook for Thanksgiving, and I did. It was fun. We actually put the tree up together. It's not finished, sadly.
Yeah.
um,
Nice. Well, work in progress.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like the cooking. I remember first cup. Like, even still now, there are times where like I'll be asleep and he's cooking something, and I'll
Yeah.
be woken up, and then he'll give me something, and I'm like, I'm trying to like not eat too much when I'm laying down, or there'll be times where like I'll wake up and there's like a big bag of chips or something on the side of my bed for me. And I'm just like, I told you I'm trying to cut down on certain
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like it's the enjoyment of that and all.
Yeah.
So there's just so much to learn from, so much discovery. There's still so much stuff that I'm learning now. I
Yeah.
don't really know the answers to everything, and I don't want to know the answers to everything, because I just think it's more fun when you just discover things, and when you're just like, oh, like maybe I should learn this or maybe I should learn that.
Yeah.
Um, all across the board, it's fun.
It is. What do you think makes the relationship work really well? Because this is like a whole year on now. This is your honeymoon phase is over. So you're not
Yeah.
riding off the honeymoon phase. You actually have a really good foundation. So yeah,
Mhm.
what do you think makes it work really well?
I notice what makes it work really well. So me and him have completely two different game systems.
Yeah.
I play on the PlayStation, he plays on the Xbox and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's this one game that he's so into. Like, the minute he turns it on, he's like glued onto it. Like, everything else that is going on in the world is just not there. Like, he's
Yeah.
just fully in his game.
Yeah.
And like, at first I thought it was silly, some of the games that he would play. I'd be like, oh, it's silly and all. But I noticed that, like, when I would take interest in the stuff that he's interested in and just have a curiosity for it, I
Yeah.
noticed that that would bring it stronger.
Mm.
Or, when we would have our little disagreements, how he would express how he would feel and how I would express how I would feel,
Yep.
that would also bring it. Or even moments where like there's time to myself,
Mm.
and like, I go to work, or I go to hang out with myself, or go to hang out with friends and stuff, and vice versa. That's what
Mm.
also brings it closer as well.
Yep.
um
You keep your
and
life going. Mm.
yeah, keeping it going and stuff. Like, even for example with disagreements, there are times where he says something that I completely disagree with,
Yeah, of course.
and it's like I don't try to force my reality, my beliefs onto him, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, he still has his own set of beliefs. I
Yeah.
still have my set of beliefs. We agree on certain things, but there are certain things that we just don't agree with on,
Yeah.
and I don't try to force what I believe or the way I view things. We just talk it out, and therefore just learn more about each other, on a communicative
Mm.
level. Um, even in terms of ego,
Yeah.
there are times where also disagreements happen. And the first thing that pops into my mind, probably about like 96% of the time, is look from his point of view. You know, don't look from my
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah.
You know, because there's two sides to the story. There maybe have been something that I said that, you know, he didn't really like, and then maybe there was something that he said that I didn't really like. So it's
Yeah.
all a matter of that. At the end of the day, he has his own free will
Yep.
and his own life, his own beliefs, and same thing with me. But
Mm,
it's just all a matter of time about how you deal with it and how you handle it,
for sure.
you know.
So continuing, the self-reflection I think that a relationship shows you is it's a profound thing because you're getting into relationships often, not for everyone. Some people have had all their needs met in childhood and they don't do this, but most people don't. They go into relationships to get love.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you often go through a lot of suffering because there comes a point where that person doesn't give you the volume of love that you think that
Yeah.
you need. And
Mhm.
that's when I think the self-love discovery starts, the process
And
begins.
yeah, and that's really I think it's honestly some of the best fun parts, you know. It was honestly fun. At the beginning it was very hard because there was so much stuff that I realized about myself.
Yeah.
Um so like just so much stuff, and then there was some stuff that I discovered about myself that I was like, I don't like, this is making me feel even worse, you know, especially when I was doing the whole Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
There was so much that just was coming out of the surface so quickly. There was
Yeah.
some stuff that came up later, but there was just
Yeah.
so much emotion, so much stuff that was. There were moments where I would do Ho'oponopono, and a memory from like childhood that I forgot about or something would come up, and I would just start
Yeah.
crying.
Yep.
So it was like
It's
a
a
lot of ugly
clearinghouse.
stuff came up about myself.
Yeah, it's a real, I mean, Ho'oponopono can do two things. It can really make you go into a feeling of feeling really relief, or
Mhm.
it can bring up a lot of, it's like it's a combing thing and it's like a big
Yep.
scoop and it brings a lot
Mhm.
of stuff up. But that's good because then you crack open and you release and you feel that little bit lighter and then you do it again and eventually, not saying you will ever fully run out, but you get less and less stuff because you've processed and let out a lot of the old
Yep.
childhood stuff that was driving you to get love.
Yep. And that's the thing. So it was like there would be times where I would do Ho'oponopono, and like after I would cry it out, I would start writing in a journal, like, you know, how I felt with certain things. What was my feelings like even before doing Ho'oponopono. I would like write in my journal, or I would pray and just be like, whatever is under the surface that I need to get fixed, just bring it out. And then there would be
Yeah.
moments where your videos would come up about Ho'oponopono. It was strange. I was like, am I
Yeah,
getting followed here?
I
Because
know.
I was like, every question that I had, there was always something that would come up. Sometimes it would come up within a few hours, maybe a couple of days, maybe weeks, maybe months.
Yep.
And it was so weird because I was just like, where did all this stuff come? I'm like, I've never seen all this stuff come up before. Why are these
Mm,
stuff coming up? So there was a certain point, I'm not going to lie, where I thought somebody was watching me and stuff.
I know. It's like
So,
all the stuff just comes and drops into your lap to help
yep,
you. It's profound. It's quite profound when you look back and you just realize how much God, source, universe, whatever words you want to use,
yeah,
hears you and assists you by giving you a book, a YouTube, someone to talk to, or
yep,
whatever.
yep. And that's the thing. Like, even the book that I just showed you, this one,
Yeah.
it fell right on my lap. Like, this was a book that my grandmother actually had in her shelf for like so long. And then the thing about it
Wow.
was like, it so happened I was in her computer room, we are talking, and then she all of a sudden just gave me this book, and I'm like, what are the chances?
Who wrote it, James? Because I'll put the link down below.
It is Herbert Harris.
Okay. I've never read that one. That's a new one to me. So lovely. I
Yeah.
will put the link down below because it's always good to read a new book and get a good recommendation.
Yeah, and you know, and that's another thing too, like I started reading a lot more, you know, because when I was little, I used to read so much,
Yep.
just escape from reality, just enjoy the imagination world. I used to write a lot. I mean, I remember when I was 12 years old, I wrote like 200 and something pages worth of stories.
Mm.
And I just loved it. And I was just like, I need to get back to that. I was like,
Yeah.
where has that person been? Like,
Yeah.
you know, this may be lame to some people, but like for my 13th birthday, I even asked my mom for a book,
Yeah. Yeah,
a
for
book
sure.
series that I was
Mm.
so interested in.
Yeah. And I think we
And
listen to so much online. And I'm not saying reading online or listening to YouTubes isn't a good thing. It is.
mhm,
But I think there's something about a book that online
yeah,
will never give you. It's just different. So, yeah, that's wonderful. I think books are one of the gems in the whole world. They're just a gem.
and that's the thing too, like you because when you're reading a book, it comes from a perspective of the author. And so it's like you're literally in somebody else's world.
Yeah.
And there's so much that you just learn throughout everything,
Mm.
you know. And there's even another author, his name is Greg Braden, that
Yep.
I've been reading and listening to his stuff, like even Neville Goddard,
Yep.
you know. I would listen, you know, to some of your meditations, or I would listen to Neville or Abraham Hicks or
Yep.
Greg Braden before going to sleep. It
Yeah.
would put me to sleep pretty fast,
Yeah, it's good. You
you
just
know.
let go. You just let go into
Yeah,
sleep. Mm.
yep. I would listen to like meditations for like hours falling asleep because like I would just have my headphones in
Yeah.
and the meditation music would just be there and it would just be sinking all in. And then I'll just wake up like in a good mood.
Yeah.
um, there
Yeah.
was even one time, the first time I did it, um, where I fell asleep with the meditation music on. I actually woke up like in a very sad mood. And the interesting thing about that was when I woke up in that really sad mood, because one of the meditations that I was listening to, it was about relieving stress and bringing things up to the surface. That same morning, all like a lot of emotions just came up because I was
Yeah.
thinking like I was going to be waking up in the good mood. And I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I feeling all these emotions and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
And I also had like a weird, scary dream about something that happened in the past, you know, with
Mhm.
my father and stuff. So it's like all this stuff was coming up, you
Mm.
know, through the meditation. So there were moments where I was a little bit reluctant to
Yeah.
meditate, you
Oh, for
know,
sure.
because,
For
yeah,
sure.
because I just noticed that there was just so much coming up that I just didn't want to remember.
I
And there
know.
were certain things that I just started reliving and
Mm.
stuff that just, you know, in my eyes at the time was just ugly.
I know.
And you know,
Yeah.
meditations after a certain type of while made me appreciate the past and
Yeah.
basically love every form of it, even the good and the bad.
Mm.
Because I'm like, the good things are memories that I cherish, and the bad are the things that made me cherish the now. So
And also
that,
they shape you, I think, when you've had difficult things happen, you are more grateful. You are more you go, well, that's shaped me for who I am today. That means I understand that person's suffering. That means I understand what it's like to walk in those shoes. Whereas if nothing bad happens and you don't have that empathy and compassion that comes from having had a really hard time. And it
yeah,
shapes you for forever. And you get to a point where you no longer go, I wish that didn't happen to me. You don't say
yeah,
that.
yep. Like I remember, you know, in school dealing with bullying.
Yeah.
You know, that was a hard thing to deal with. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and being afraid to go to the cafeteria
Yeah.
because, you know, of the bullying. It was just so hard. And so I had that memory embedded.
Yeah, of
And
course.
then the the relationship of 3 years, this is a little personal, but I remember, you know, he attempted to force himself on me when I
Yep.
was when we were into the relationship, and I didn't realize the full extent of that until later on, until one of my friends told me.
Yep.
She was like, James, that's forceful of,
Yeah.
rape and stuff.
Yep.
And it scared me completely,
Yep.
because there was just so much stuff that I just didn't understand that started coming up. And it was just all of those combinations
Yeah.
of things. And
Mm.
I was like, wow, like all this stuff happened, but I'm like, I'm in a better place now.
I know. And you just go, okay, that's stuff I probably didn't want to think about. That's stuff I may have even minimized, that it wasn't as
Yeah.
bad as. But you know what? Some stuff was really horrible. And when you go into, I think like what you said with Ho'oponopono, you go back and you face that dark stuff
Hmm.
and you let it bubble up and out and you finally grieve it, feel the hurt, feel the anger, feel the shame, feel the anxiety, whatever, fear, intense fear, all sorts of stuff comes up with Ho'oponopono. But
Yep.
then the freedom on the other side of feeling that stuff, and you're no longer blocking all the energy centers with piles of stuff that you never wanted to feel, or you couldn't because you were a child, you were at the mercy of what was
Yep.
going on because you were a child. You couldn't run away because you were 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever. You couldn't. So it's
Hmm.
profound to finally let the adult then take care of the inner child and help. The inner child knows where all the stuff is. It
Yep.
remembers everything. It stored it and filed it and kept it locked. So when you give it
Hmm.
permission through doing Ho'oponopono, inner child meditations, and all these different types of meditations, it's like the can of worms is finally released and you can become free. So for those people watching this, if you're going through that where a lot of stuff's coming up and you're just smashed emotionally by it, do not despair. You will get to the other side. You will, if you keep letting it out, it's like you have shed years worth of stuff and you will be lighter
Hmm.
and feel amazing.
Yep, and that's the thing, like, sorry, even now, like, for example, I remember I had a situation at work where something happened, and it was where a group of my coworkers, they were reminding me of, when I would get bullied in school and stuff,
Yeah.
and how I'd be afraid to go to the cafeteria. And after that situation, that emotion came up, and this is just recently.
Yep.
And so even still, even after doing the work, while you're on this earth, there's so much discovery about your
Mm.
stuff, about yourself. Still, there's going to be stuff that comes up. There's going to be triggers. And
Yep.
I think the difference between now as opposed to then was now I don't really run away from it. Now I just kind of accept it. And
Yep.
I'm just like, let me just fix it. This is stuff that I didn't even know that I still had. So I'm like,
Yes.
bring it up to the surface. I'm like, I'm open to fixing it. I'm open to kicking it out the door, wherever it's going, just get out.
Yeah, get out. We're not doing that anymore. But it's another, you just go, okay, thank you. I'm going to clear a bit more old stuff instead of going, why are they doing this? And why am I feeling this? And I don't want to be here and I need to leave this job. And you just go, hang on a minute. This is just old stuff and someone's just poked me in the raw pink nerve. That's it.
Yep. And that's the thing, like, you know, something else that was really hard for me to accept. And it was one of the things that, watching your videos, there's some stuff, that I contributed to. I was just like, hold on, I'm not the victim here. I was like,
Yeah.
I need to stop playing the victim mentality. I'm
Yeah.
like, it was a hard thing to kind of dive into because for so long I was just,
Yeah.
they did this to me, they did that, it was
Yeah.
just always me being the center of the victim world.
Yeah.
And so coming with the realization that I needed to stop playing the victim and that, started thinking like maybe there were some things that I contributed to. That was another hard thing to do. And I think even especially now in today's days and age, it's not really something that everybody wants to do. you know,
Yeah.
take into account that they did something or
Yes.
how they contributed to the situation, what they could have done. And so that's where the forgiving of myself came, because I was like, not only do I need to forgive them for what they did, but I also need to forgive myself. Like, what did I do that
Yep.
transpired? You
Yeah.
know, was I being too forceful? Was I trying to force my
Mm.
beliefs or my struggles onto them?
Yeah.
So that was something that was so hard. And I think, especially even when somebody deals with certain things out of their lives, a lot of people really kind of dive into what that person did and the
Yes.
story of maybe, and not all the time, this is not all the time situations, but on so many rare occasions do we hear about the other side, you know, like what that person maybe did, like what was the whole full story, you
Yeah.
know, even when me and him get into disagreements, there are times where I would talk to a trusted friend of mine and I would
Yeah.
explain about what happened. I would explain about the full story so that my friend does not just see my side and then just be like, oh, he did this and he did that, or he was wrong. I,
Yes.
I would always tell the full story so
Yeah.
that there's the two sides so that people can give the honest
Yes.
perspective.
Yes.
So it's like that victim mentality is something that I don't really let govern my life anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I find, in my relationship, I always think, okay, if that's in front of me, what have I got going on that I need to look at? It's not, oh, like, arms crossed, he did, he did, he did. You just go, hang on a minute. What have I got going on that we're doing this today? And then you go,
Mhm.
okay, I've been thinking negative thoughts, or I've been tired, and then that's made me grumpy, and then I'm not sleeping enough, and then the neighbor woke me up, or whatever. And you go, I need some sleep. I need a meditation. I need some time alone. I need to go and walk in nature. I need to
Mhm.
recharge because I've dropped below, I'm down to 50% or a bit less. That's not good. I need to get back up to about 80, but I
Yeah.
need to look at what I need and I need to correct that. So,
Yeah, I even had a moment, I remember this was like months ago before this pandemic even started, and I was having a not so good day at work. It was a suckish day.
yeah.
And usually at work, like around my lunch break, I would always call, check up on him, or I would text or so, let him know how I'm feeling. He would let me know how he's feeling.
Yeah.
And there was that one day where it was a horrible day at work. It was
Yeah.
horrible. And he actually picked me up from work shortly right after, and I was not in a good mood. You know, I was
Yeah.
barely talking, and I ended up projecting that onto him. And then I
Yeah.
started getting upset because how the way he was responding to me.
Yes.
And then I was thinking to myself, it took me until we got back to the house for me to realize it. But I was in the living room and I was just watching a movie, and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't
Mhm.
tell him how I was feeling. I just started acting weird towards him. Of
Yes.
course, realistically, he's gonna respond to me like this.
Yes.
And so I just went in the room and I apologized. I was like, I am sorry that I didn't tell you, how my workday was. I came at you with this energy that you
Yeah.
wasn't even asking for.
Yeah.
And so just admitting when I'm wrong is something
Yes.
that lifts a lot off my shoulder. And
So
and the thing about it too is just like I notice even some people when they say they're sorry, it doesn't even feel like they're really sorry, because they'll say it in the sarcastic way. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," or they'll say it under pressure. But you
mm,
know, anytime before I apologize, I always want to make sure that it's 100% sincere. Like I actually mean it, because if I say it in a sarcastic way, there's
yep.
still stuff underneath me that's saying, "Oh, he or she was wrong," or something like
Yep.
that. I'm still in the right. So it's just sitting
Mm.
with yourself in the mirror can not always be the greatest thing, but it's healthy.
It's healthy. Yeah. Yeah. And it's that thing, seek to understand rather than to be understood, which, we've heard for years. But boy, when you're in the middle of it and
Hmm.
that dynamic's going on, it's like, whew, you know, and I think
Yeah.
like what you were doing, you sit and you watch a movie and you start to decompress from the day and
Hmm.
have your thoughts while the movie's going on, and then you can go, oh, okay, yeah, that wasn't, my approach wasn't good. I wasn't handling how I felt very well. And
Yep.
so, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like self-love. So what I thought, my first perception of self-love, I'm gonna be very honest, I thought it was like me being overly confident and me just standing out and in front of the world and stuff.
I know.
And it actually started becoming to a point where I started learning, and I think in one of your old videos you actually discussed this as well. He was like,
Yeah.
self-love is not being cocky or overly confident. You know, you have to learn to appreciate and love yourself while also understanding that people also have their own set of beliefs and also accepting them for who they are. You
Yeah.
know, I remember before I used to have a certain belief about people that smoke cigarettes. You know,
Yeah.
I would kind of look at them a certain type of way, and he used to smoke cigarettes. In the very beginning, since I was like in such a huge self-love phase and still am now, instead of looking at him like in a snarly way, I was just like, I accept you for this. And it's weird because now he's actually in the process of quitting smoking now. So it's
Lovely.
like there's certain things that just
Yeah.
you gain so much from loving yourself. It's just it goes so much deeper than,
Yeah.
it goes deeper than just you being confident about yourself. It just also helps you accept so much people for who they are. And
It does.
that's something that unfortunately we don't see too much these days. You know, you
No.
have people that unfortunately end friendships, relationships, even disown their own family members because of, different belief systems, different political beliefs, different religious beliefs.
Religious
And I'm like,
beliefs. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, there's so much to the surface that
Mm.
can be gained and to learn by, understanding that not everybody's going to have the same belief as you. Everybody has their own set of beliefs. Everybody has their own set of their kingdom. And I think the more that you try to push that on
Mm.
people, the further people are going to want to push away from you and stuff because you're invading their comfort zone, you know?
Yeah, and you're basically saying my way's the only way or my way's the right way. And that's why we've had so many issues with politics, religion, and
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, I remember in
Yeah.
high school, there was this kid in my class. Like when I went to high school, it opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I went to school with people that had so many different backgrounds, so many different beliefs. And I remember because the school that I had went to before, everybody, like, well, majority of the kids in school were Christian or Catholic,
Yeah.
had similar beliefs that I did, growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had met a kid who was an atheist. And, we ended up speaking, and he was giving his beliefs about why he believed this and why he believed that. And there was no form of like anger. There was no anger that came up in me. There was no arguing back and forth. It was just a civil conversation. He explained why he believed this and how he's open to certain things. I told him how I believe this and how I'm open to certain things. It was just a beautiful conversation, and we ended up becoming very good friends and everything.
Lovely.
Yeah, so it's like just understand that people have different belief systems.
Yeah.
It's not it's really not that hard, and I think the more we try to force our world or our beliefs on people, the
Yeah.
more wars and
Yeah.
stuff we're gonna have.
It's true. It's true. I think acceptance of our differences is one of the biggest lessons that we still, as humans, irregardless of country, irregardless of age, culture, any of that, I think we can all aspire to do a bit better with that for sure. For sure.
Definitely, I've started to notice that too. Like even when I would meet different people, from different like backgrounds and stuff. I remember there were two girls that I went to school with in high school that were Muslim, And
Yeah.
at the time, I knew nothing about like nothing at all.
Yeah.
And they educated me so much about it. I was like, this stuff is like, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, some of the stuff that you guys do, and I'm
Mm.
like, the food that you guys eat, it's just so interesting. And that was
Yeah.
all when I was starting my self-love phase, when I was just discovering so much about not just law of attraction, but just different cultures, different religions, backgrounds. And that's really what helped me kind of forget about wanting to attract that specific person.
Yeah.
Was I started getting into the things that I was interested in before. I started getting into things that I never did before,
Yeah.
hanging out with people that I never thought I would be hanging out with. And it just overall, it got me to the point where I was just like, it's whatever. And it's weird because literally right as soon as I got into this relationship, I actually encountered the one that I was trying to attract the entire time. And I
Yeah.
was like, what the like
Yeah.
it was weird. It was super, it was actually pretty awkward a little bit too, because I was like, wait a minute, is that him?
Yeah, I mean, it often happens, that as soon as you feel loved and wanted and happy, exes come back, you get job opportunities, you get
Yeah.
unexpected money, you have someone contact you like the way you two met. It's like stuff just goes whoosh and drops right here. And as you got to let go of all that stuff that I need it, I'm unhappy without it, I can't be
Mhm.
happy, I'm dissatisfied, that whole trying to do this. Once you get that, you can never get what you want by that energy. That energy
Yeah.
is it's a magnet repellent, and it does that, it pushes you away, or it pushes
And
it away from you.
yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it. Literally, in the process of me trying to attract him back, I remember I was trying to apply for certain jobs. That wasn't even falling on my lap or anything.
Yeah.
I was trying to reconcile certain relationships. It was actually going the opposite of what I wanted.
Yes.
I started failing when I was taking certain tests. It was like all this stuff, like you
Mm,
said, was just pushing and going further and further away from me. Everything that I was trying to
mm,
do to better my life was literally getting pushed.
mm.
And, that was because in the process, I was just so focused on wanting to get that back, just
Yeah,
so focused on it.
I know.
It actually started becoming unhealthy. It was becoming obsessive. I started having
Yeah,
dreams about it. I was like, I have to do it. I have to get him back.
yeah,
At that point, I'm going to admit, at that point, I was willing to do anything
yeah,
religiously to make sure that I got that back.
I know. And when
Anything.
you look back at yourself, you just go, "Whoa, I was in such obsession.
Hmm.
I wasn't really loving them. I was trying to get love from them, and I was obsessed with trying to get love from them." That's where I was at. But it's hard to admit that to yourself while you're in it. It's easier to look back
Hmm.
later and see it.
Yep. I was like, that was unhealthy. Like, I was just like, I can't believe that. And I remember I was even looking at like text messages from before and just
Yeah,
seeing how energy I was just trying to force onto it. I was
I
like, oh,
know.
like, what was I thinking?
I know, but you can't. It's like you see yourself with such different eyes
Yeah.
later. And today it was really interesting, James, because I was putting in some I was going back to old YouTubes and fixing up keywords. And
Hmm.
I put into the app that I use, which is TubeBuddy. I
Yeah.
put in certain keywords and it gives you a percentage. Anyway, I
Hmm.
put in specific person, or how to attract a specific person, or can I get it attracted? And it went right up to about 95 out of 100, which tells me a lot of people are looking for that. When I put in the word self love, 10%.
Wow.
Now, what that tells me is still so many people are trying to get love out there. They haven't understood that self-love is the base foundation. And until they do, they're going to struggle like you did, like I did. It's like when you're on the other side of this lesson, you realize all the stuff that you were, it's nothing wrong with wanting a specific person. I mean, you
Yeah.
were someone's specific person. I have a specific person. That's not the issue. It's what are you doing underneath that? What energy are you putting in towards that? And if you're looking to get and rather than giving, or if you're looking to take from a relationship rather than give to it, you are going to suffer. You're going to be on the little not the rabbit wheel, the gerbil wheel for a
Yeah.
long time until you finally get the importance of this. It will smash you again and again until you learn it. And, there's no right time to learn it. You just get it when you get it. But if you can learn something from other people's mistakes and cause yourself a lot less suffering, do the self-love work in whatever way you feel it resonates with you, because there's lots of different ways to do self-love. But
Yeah.
it's almost like it is the balm that soothes the suffering at a deep level. That's the balm.
It does. And there's this YouTuber who I also follow. And she, like, I noticed that when she posts up certain videos about like attracting jobs or money, or, well, actually, no, when it's like jobs or like self love or just like self discovery, just certain things in the day to day life that makes people happy. There are people that view and comment, but the minute she puts up a video about attracting a specific person or an ex, the comments are filled. Like, it is a huge swarm of
It's
people.
a swarm. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I noticed that. And she put a video up about self-love and self-care. And she got a lot of views on that one. But even if you look closely on her views sometimes, anytime she posts up about a specific person, how to get this person back, how to get that person back.
Yeah.
It's a huge swarm of people.
I know.
And I even had I had a friend an acquaintance. I don't really talk to him much anymore. And I remember he was like texting me and he was saying how like, oh, James, what can I do to get this and that person back? I was like, well, it's not really about that. It's about self-love. And he was like, well, do you have any resources? I was like, and I actually sent him a link to your channel. And this was last year. I sent him a link to your channel. And then like some other channels as well.
Yeah.
And he was like, James, I'm doing it all, but nothing is happening. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? He was like, I'm trying to make sure that I get him back and make sure I do this and that. And I'm just like, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah. But I think
And
a lot of people start there. They're doing it just to get, I'll do the self-love, but it's just really to get.
Yeah, and that's what I did. And then I was telling him, I was just like,
Me too.
there's so much more to it. And then, like, even now, I remember he actually texted me not too long ago. He was like, James, I have a quick question. I was just like, oh God, what happened? He was like, so if you're constantly thinking about somebody, does that mean that they're thinking about you? And I was just like, not necessarily. I was just like, there have been moments where I've thought of people all the time, and still to this day, nothing. So I'm like, I told him, I was like, I think it's really all about the less attachment. I've had moments where there have been people that I haven't spoken to in years, and the minute I think of them, all of a sudden I get a text message from them out of nowhere. And it's weird. So that's what I was telling him. I was just like, if you have a certain form of attachment to it, unhealthy attachment to it, you're gonna get a different result. I remember there was this one girl that I used to go to school with. Her name was Scarlett, and we had around the time we hadn't spoken since probably 5th grade, and I thought of her and I was talking about her to my best friend. And I was like, that was a girl I used to go with. Her name was Scarlett and everything. And I'm like, I wonder how she's doing. Could you not? I think it was a week later, I got a long paragraph from her on my Facebook page. And she was like, hey, you actually look like somebody that I remember. Um, if not, I'm sorry for sending you this long text message. I don't mean to be a creep, but I remember you from elementary school. And I was like, Scarlett?
No way.
So
Wow.
it's really cool. So that's what I was telling him. I was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was like, there's so much to life that I'm like, we're on this earth for a certain amount of time. Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't, and I'm like, the way to look at it this way for anybody who is watching, the way to look at it is this way, you know, you have so much potential, so much to your life. And what if, God forbid, the next minute or the next hour or next day, you're no longer on this earth? Do you want your last memory to be that you were trying to get a specific person, or that you were hung up on something so much
Yeah.
that you were missing out on the values of life, you know, about the fact that you're able to see, the fact that you're able to hear,
Yes.
the whole idea that you have the privilege to do certain things and to get all these resources from life, that you were so obsessed with this.
Yeah.
And
I
that's what
agree.
was also a wake-up call for me.
Yeah. It's like something just turns on and you just go, wow, I have fixated so much. I've missed out. It's almost like you've missed out on all of life around you because you're in your head, just how can I get love from this person? How can I get this person to notice me? How can I get them to be with me? And you are in a state of uncomfortability mentally, emotionally, and it's once you realize that self-love can, over a period of time, it doesn't have to take long, it can take longer for some people, shorter. It depends how you do it, and whether your intention is to do it for you,
Yeah,
because you no longer want to be in this suffering dynamic between, if I don't get love from that person, I'm never going to be all right. You realize that's the real work. And
yeah.
once you get that and you make doing it really for you, and the relationship will just benefit from it, my God, that is a powerful moment. It's a powerful
It
moment.
is. And it goes deeper beyond that. You know, a lot of us, I was watching a video on Ho'oponopono, and, you know, they were talking about like family ties. It
Yeah,
goes, I, I just think self-love goes so much deeper
mm,
than what some people think.
it
It
does.
goes also with family ties, you know,
Yeah,
subconscious beliefs. There's so much that ties into it that
mm,
some people don't really think about.
mm,
I'm like, when you're going into finally getting into self-love, no matter how old you are, some people start loving themselves younger, some people start a little bit older. There's no time frame about it. It's never too late to ever do it.
yeah,
Um, and you know, it goes deeper than that. You know, there's family ties, there's sometimes years or time frames of certain actions, certain habits that you've had. And it's like you're shedding that part of you. You're bringing
yeah,
out the new best in your true self.
yes,
And that's what I always found so interesting. That's what gained my interest, was the whole fact
mm,
of like, there's so much discovery, because I'm a very curious person. Anytime I
yes,
start reading certain things, and I think for anybody who's a Sagittarius or
yes,
anything like that, the minute you start reading something or binge watching a show or just learning about something,
yeah,
just so fixated on it
yeah,
and so attached to it, and you just want to get all the information that you can. You don't even care if it takes, if there's like probably thousands of information. You just want to get all, you
mm.
want to get it all. You're hungry for more.
It is, that's true.
So,
Yeah,
and
lovely.
that's the thing, because you know, I would watch certain videos about self-love, and they would talk sometimes about the basics. And one of the great things about your channel is you're actually one of the few channels that actually really dives into the much bigger systems of self-love. You know, because I've watched some videos on self-love, and they're like, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, make sure you know, you do this. But I noticed one of the things that I'm so grateful for about coming across your channel is, you know, you would talk about childhood stuff, you would talk about the bigger portions of it. There's not many channels that I've noticed, even still to this day, that have talked about Ho'oponopono,
Okay.
still to this day.
Okay.
And you know, there are some, but it's not really many.
Okay.
And I noticed that yours is one of the few that still gets into the nitty gritty of a lot of things. You know, I would watch your interviews with Dan,
Yes.
and they would talk about like projections and stuff. All that stuff was fun to listen to. It would be interesting to listen to that stuff right before school, because I
Yeah.
would think about some of that stuff and I'll just be like, wow, I didn't know that we can
Mm,
do all this stuff. I'm like, this
yeah.
makes so much sense, you
Yeah.
know?
James, can you send me, because I know you've listened to some other Ho'oponopono stuff. I'm going to put the links to the Ho'oponopono stuff that is through Dr. Hew Len and some great interviews with him. If you've got any, can you send them to me that you listen
Yeah,
to, and then I'll
definitely.
add them in, because I love finding another good Ho'oponopono video or
Yeah.
lecture or interview, and it's fascinating. Well, my lovely, I just had to message someone. I'm going to coach someone and I'm 20 minutes late. I said, look, this interview's really good. I have to just keep going. So she's been waiting. So thank you so, so very
Thank
much.
you.
This has been absolutely just lovely. And, you know, hearing people in good relationships, I think really helps other people. But to have good relationships in a relationship, the
Mhm.
people in the relationship have to have a good relationship with their own selves. And it's
Yeah.
lovely to see that you're now benefiting from all the work you did and you're still doing, you know. So
Yeah.
thanks, thanks so much, James, for coming. And
Thanks, you too. It's
yeah,
been an honor. Thank you.
it's lovely, lovely. And James's story is in the book Behind Closed Doors. And we said it was the story with Ryan, in case because a lot of people have already got it, you will know who he is. And do you want to say goodbye, to everyone, James? And then we'll say bye in private.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. I'll see you, as always, in the next YouTube, the next interview. All the links will be down below for you to explore a bit more. Okay.